Hi girls, it's Thursday and St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm not feeling this week either. Amazing. Shock. I actually did that challenge that was assigned to me like a month ago. Awkward. Anyway, I'm all for passes. I think that's good, but would the pass count for like reasons beyond your control? Like, I don't know, if you have like a big test the next day, or would just be like, I was too lazy, so I used a pass. The week limit, that's a good motivator, because we're not good at doing stuff. But I finally did this, and it's kind of long, and I think it might be a little bit boring, so I apologize in advance, but it's kind of like all the backstory, then I realized that it was long, so then I made it into the actual story. Anyway, so this is the challenge that was, George is 26, he's a poet, he likes chicken noodle soup, he's homeless, and the setting is a child's bedroom. Alright, just a short story without a name. Yeah. It was George's lucky day. While taking his early morning stroll, he happened to come across a $10 bill laying on the ground. He thought he had stepped on a crunchy leaf. He was glad he did a double take. George was on his way to the grocery store. He pondered his situation, where he was in life. Maybe the money was some outer force throwing him a bone for the present hardships he was in. George wasn't necessarily homeless, or he liked to think that he wasn't. He had a car, no heat, no house, no job, but home was where you're happy, right? So he wasn't homeless. Not exactly. He had a job at one point, and at one point he thought he could make it on his own. So right after college, he drove his car and just kept driving. He wound up at a Wegmans in a small suburban area, where he promptly applied for a job, and he got it. After half a year working there, tying tight bonds, so he thought, with the people working there, he felt comfortable enough to park his van and live in the parking lot. However, people complained about the silliest things, and George soon realized that Wegmans was no home for him. Granted, the manager told him first, but he realized it soon afterwards. George drove his van again. He wound up in a park, the one where he found the money, off to find another grocery store or place of employment. George didn't mind his up-and-down lifestyle, breaking ties with people almost as soon as they'd been knotted, constantly moving. No one knew where he was going or where he was. But that was fine. Half the time, George didn't know where he was either. He stayed in town until the inspiration for his work was sucked dry. Then he got up and made sure to never look back. He passed the stores common of small towns: tanning booths, Dunkin' Donuts, CVS, liquor stores, a church, then finally Hannaford. Sounds good. He watched the automatic glass doors slide open. The gray handbaskets brought his attention. He hardly had any money, but hey, it would make him feel better to have one. Feeling the bill in his pocket, George realized that he felt no guilt for taking it. If he had found it in a building, he would try to return it. He knew that in his present situation, he would be devastated if he had lost that much money. Regardless, it's his now, and he'd been living off his savings for weeks, which isn't much money. He tried not to listen as his stomach growled. The fluorescent light was unsettling, as he hadn't experienced it in seemingly forever. He checked his watch. 8:03. Hardly anyone was here, he thought. He became self-conscious of the squeak that his old sneakers made on the tiled floor. He rushed his shopping, wanting to know if he had to keep going or if he could stay. Hi. I was wondering if there were any jobs available? He asked meekly, afraid of rejection. Oh, yeah, there are. The girl at the counter ruffled some papers and handed him a job application. George slipped the application into his pocket. Smiling, he clutched his eco-friendly bag of groceries and walked to his van. There was a rough jab in his side, and he tumbled forward. His can of chicken noodle soup rolled out of the bag, and his carton of milk split in the process of him falling. A car door slams. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. My son. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? George dusted himself off and looked at the lady. He was more upset about the condition his oranges were in. Yeah, no, it's fine. His smile was insincere. Then why do you look so upset? She leaned on the bumper of his car. How does one explain George's situation? I don't really have a lot of money, and my food is all. George is a marvelous poet, but he could never quite speak as eloquently as he wrote. I understand. I'm a single mom trying to make ends meet, she said. George nodded. I live in a van. The two laughed at their misfortune. I'm George. I'm Carolyn. They shook hands. They sat on the bumper of Carolyn's car. George told her everything about his life, and she told him everything about hers. This is going to sound crazy, but I have an extra room in my apartment, and I was looking for someone to help me manage things and clean up. Would you like that? I mean, as long as you aren't a pervert or steal or do drugs, I think we should be fine. That was the thing about George. He had an honest face. It had to have been at least an hour when George said, Carolyn, your son, wasn't he in the car? She giggled. Oh, no, he called my cell phone. Silly of me to try and pick it up. She trailed off. Well, I guess I'll lead you home. She stood up. What? He said. Follow my car. Come on. George took what was left of his groceries and went to his van. After a few minutes, they pulled up to a quaint little house with a modest garden and a small bicycle on the lawn. George wouldn't expect this to be anyone's house but Carolyn's. The keys jingled as Carolyn opened the door. Just then, George was hit with uncertainty. He didn't know Carolyn, but unfamiliarity had never bothered him before. Here's your room. She opened the guest door and let him in. He put down his coat and what little possessions he had. But what if Carolyn is terrible? Her son could be a monster. A bland monologue of Carolyn's voice explained the layout of the house as George ran through a list of questions in his head. And last but not least, this is Jimmy's room. It was a complete mess. Carolyn, noticing the bewildered expression on George's face, said, Well, I don't have to be at work for a few more hours. I'll show you where everything goes. George plunged into the mess. Months later, George stood in that very same spot. Clutching an engagement ring in his hand, he thought, maybe I wouldn't mind if I settled down for a while. Yeah, I had to make it into a love story. That's all I could do with that. Alright, so, Jesse, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.